It's a good excuse to attend a lot of game development events. Now, this isn't really an excuse you need. It's just, if you think you need an excuse, it's very good to have. And you have a lot of discounts, so you can travel cheaply to all of the events that you go to. And also, if you've ever done solo projects, it's very hard to ever finish them. So deadlines are really good. So I have three criteria for my game studies. You want to do as many game projects as possible, so you get a long portfolio. You also want to study where there's an active game development scene, so you can get an internship and get lots of feedback and go to events. And you want a place where code meets art. So this is your typical game project. It's about 1 semester long. I expected the team sizes to be like 4 to 5 people, but I surveyed it and I got a lot of different answers. But basically you do some planning in the start, then everything doesn't quite go to plan, then you try to solve the problems, and then you end up with a solution that you didn't initially expect. And it's called a learning experience. That's how I'm told this is how all game projects are. So IGDA stands for International Game Developer Association. And wherever there are game developers, there's like IGDA hub. There are 13 in Finland, actually. The newest one in Lahti. And they hold monthly gatherings. So basically anyone can join the monthly gatherings if they so choose. Now, let's talk about roles in the game development team. So on the left, we have artists. All this stuff is something that you'd probably learn in an art school and probably wouldn't learn in code school, programming school. Then on the right, we have all of the skills, programmer skills that are you wouldn't necessarily learn them in an art school, I think. Then if you think of let's think of a deck of cards. Like an artist could draw the card faces and the programmer could do something like solitaire. But how do you make a new card game? Now that's the big question. Now you can read books about game design. You can take some courses in game design. But I think we can all agree that you learn game design by making games, playing games, and analyzing games. And professional game designers will tell you you need to involve the whole team into the game design process. And I very much agree with that. Like, you don't want to implement game mechanics that don't make any sense to you. But above all, we want to combine the art and the code side. That's because that's where the magic happens. Let me demonstrate. This is an art game. It looks nice, but it doesn't do anything. This is a programmer game. It's a placeholder. We're waiting for the art assets. And this is what happens when you add art. This is the kind of increase in production quality you can expect when you do that. If you didn't see any difference, you're probably a programmer. So, as you might have seen from the FPS, this is a speedrun. All of the full curricula are publicly available on the internet. So here are my slides, and I hope you know what to look for after this. So I will be talking about a couple of vocational qualifications. I will talk about a bunch of bachelor's degree programs in universities of applied sciences, and I will be talking about a couple of master's degree programs. So first we have vocational qualification in media and visual expression. And here we have to choose the audiovisual competence area. And actually, in this 180 experience point degree, you can actually use up to 100 experience points in game development. That's like 1.5 years. This is the kind of intended game development qualification for this level. Then it's available in these places. You can check these later. Then we have Datanomy. No, I think it's Datanomy. And it's basically ICT, Information Communications Technology. And here we have software development, which is, so we need to do some trickery because this isn't really a game development degree. we have to say, oh, a game is kind of like a software. So therefore, game development is kind of like software development. So we just replaced the software with a game, and now we have kind of a game development qualification. Again, you could, in theory, use 100 experience points in game development. Oh, wait, they're actually competence points. So this is available in a whole bunch of places. The closest one being SASKI, Municipal Education and Training Consortium, or SASKI Koulutuskuntayhtymä if you like Finnish compound words. It's available also in these other places. So then we have something funky called, well, I'll call them folk high schools. So they're independent education, like privately owned independent education. They're basically for everybody in the sense that you don't need to have any kind of educational background. It does cost money, but it does count as studying in terms of your student income things. So one use case for this would be like if you're kind of in between schools, like you didn't quite make it to the school you wanted to go, you could apply it here because the application period is kind of like after the application periods, entrance exams. And you could concentrate on making games for 1 year. And like there's some esports material in here too, but like basically you can learn a lot in 1 year. Like you not necessarily like a full-blown professional, but a lot, as you can see. So yeah, or if you just want to try game development. So it's available in these places, closest one being Alman, of course, and you probably saw the booth coming in here. So bachelor's degrees. A very typical arrangement is that you have 1 year of basic studies, and then you go on to pick one study path from a choice of many to specialize in something. So we're always going to pick game development one way or the other. You can always do your thesis and practical training about video games if you just can find a suitable topic. And usually you could bloat this number even more if you do summer studies as games and project studies as games and so on. So we're going to start off in Turku. And in Turku we have a bachelor's degree in engineering, basically ICT. These Finnish and English degrees are basically the same. They share a lot of the same study paths, including game development. Then there's also one Culture and Arts animation degree that's not about video games per se, but we'll get to that. So here you're spending your first year doing basically math, physics, engineering, that sort of thing, because it's an engineering degree. Then you pick a game development study path, which is going to take about half of your weekly hours. You don't see any art here yet, but they split into game technology and game graphics on their third year of studies. So by that point, you're kind of like an engineer specializing in ICT, specializing in game development, specializing in game graphics. But that's one way to do it. Then they also have this animation degree, which doesn't have game development per se, but they have a lot of elective and project studies on their third year. And I'm told you can customize it a lot towards game development. It's up to you because these are on different campuses, and it's kind of like you have to go out of your way to go there and learn, get along with new people and get involved in the project. But you can do it. Turku also has IGDA Hub, unsurprisingly. They have a Turku Game Hub, which is really cool, but I don't have time for that. And they have, and they have the Turku Game Lab, which is the cooperation between University of Turku and Turku University of Applied Sciences. So then we move on to Kajaani, which of course has a long traditions. They have one business information systems, one engineering, and one esports business. What I will say about the esports business is that it's probably the only one in Finland, and you could do some game studies there, but that's about as much as I'm going to say about it. The business information systems is interesting because you pick your games industry study path after the first semester. So you already do one 2D game pretty seriously during your first year of studies. And in your second year, you pick between game graphics, game production, game programming, and international game development. Their engineering is much more about math, physics, programming, microcontrollers. Then you move on to game engines and game technologies, and then you move on to serious games, simulators, multiplayer, and then you finally have like 1 semester of basically elective studies, which are basically game development studies from the other program. Kajaani has, unsurprisingly, an IGDA hub. They have their own student cooperative to publish their games on Steam. And Northern Games Summit is coming if you're into like networking events and like proper professional conferences. In Metropolia, we again start out with an engineering degree. We actually have 2 different like media and communications degrees there, which both have 1 game project each. One thing I will point out is that they have game development, like 1/4 game development during their first year, so you get kind of a hold of what game development is like before you pick your study path. They have like 6 available or something. So this bottom one is basically programming, and you'd think that 3D animation would be a lot more about video games, but it's not. They have 1 game project in there somewhere. That covers you for graphics for 1 game project, and I think it's more about taking a couple of programmers and throwing them to another campus to work on a project, and that's not going to work. So the way they mitigate it is by taking more artists from vocational education, from Amiedu, from media study, and also like more University of Applied Sciences, like students come from the larger Helsinki metropolitan area to Metropolia to make games together. Then we move on to southeastern Finland, and they have 2 dedicated game development programs from day 1. Like they don't have study paths in there, and the other one is game design, and the other one is programming. Now I've highlighted a couple of things here, but basically the top one is obviously an art degree. Like you don't get art history or environmental design or character design in very many places. You don't even get motion capture in very many places. And then you get a little bit of game scripting in the end. Now, the bottom one is like basically 100% programming. Like their game projects go from 1 to 5, and like they have they don't have physics, they have game physics and game engine maths, and like everything about their degree is about game development, but they have very little graphics. And these campuses are 54 kilometers apart, which is bad for cooperation. But I hear they do common game jams and they try to cooperate as much as possible. But it would be good for if you're considering, please write them an email. So so out of the 2 cities, only Kotka has a game IGDA hub. And a Kouvola Game Week is coming if you live there for some reason. Here in Tampere, we have Business Information Systems, which is about programming, and Media and Arts. So the way this works is, our bottom one is basically like a programming school. And the top one is it's in Mediapolis. It's basically an art degree for all intents and purposes, together with all the other art stuff. And this time we come together to the main campus in a place called TAMK Games Academy. Now, this is currently organized in 3 seasons. So in season 1, you'd make a 2D game, and season 2, you'd make a 3D game. And in the new curriculum, you have the season 3. Now, the first 2 are going to be full-time, make video games sorts of things. But the 3rd season is basically like you have this giant project you're doing, which is kind of intended with the experience you've gathered from the first 2, you could do much bigger project and release it commercially or something. So yeah, Tampere has IGDA hub, as you can see. This Friday Games Fest is organized by IGDA Tampere. And we have really nice Tampere Game Hub under construction. Check it out, it's really cool. The Oulu has very different idea on how to do this. So as you could see, all the other ones had their studies on second or third year, but in Oulu it's like third or fourth year towards the end of your studies. Now, this is the most diverse. You could apply to Oulu Game Lab from a number of places, any of the programming side things, engineering, business information systems, your culture and arts. There's one exchange program for engineering, and they're actually like looking for people from marketing and sound and music. And also Open University of Applied Sciences, which is like, maybe you just have the skills, but you're not studying right now. So the way it works is they make small teams. They make 14 concepts, and they spend 2 weeks making a really kick-ass pitch. They actually have their gate 1 today, so hopefully not too many crushed dreams. But it shrinks down to 9 designs, and the members of the eliminated teams join the remaining ones. And then they have a gate 2, and then they have 5 teams after that. And then they go on to make 5 playable gameplay demos. Now, previously, they would have a gate 3 and they could go on, like if they could go through gate 3, their goals would shift. They would try to make a startup company by making the game really kick-ass. Now, they have gone through some changes recently. So the old focus was startup companies. Their new focus is employment and internship. So the way it's going to work this autumn is they're going to demo their games in December to the local Oulu area ICT companies and games companies, and try to get as many of the team members hired as possible. And also the game path is going to get more exclusive. Oulu has IGDA hub, no surprises there. The Core Loop Collective is a co-working space, I think largely organized by ex-Oulu Game Lab alumnis. So, master's degrees. So, how many of you have played a video game late in the evening and played longer than intended? Okay. How many of you were tired the next day as a result? Okay, thank you. So this was an example of a small scale, or actually a quite large scale, very unscientific game study about the effects of gaming. Clearly makes us very sleepy. But so game studies is all about studying games as a phenomenon and how it affects us, and like what positive and what negative effects it has on us. I took this example from game researcher Mikko Meriläinen because I thought it was funny. And you can read this on your own time, basically. So in University of Turku, you can study interaction design as a major. Now, we interact with things on a daily basis, and it doesn't work. It doesn't always work. So I really feel that this field needs more love. Like I can totally, after developing like 3 different video games, I can totally see that this should be really interesting to a whole number of games companies. And you can see in the applications of interaction design, they list like game design and gamification and serious games. So this is one of the places where you could go and study and do a whole bunch of cooperation with the aforementioned Turku University of Applied Sciences through the Turku Game Lab program. But yeah, in 2010, people were very confused when Helsinki University of Technology and the University of Art and Design Helsinki fused together. People were like, oh, like engineers don't take art studies and art students don't take engineering studies. Like this is never going to work, clearly. But engineering, so game development is an interdisciplinary field. So what they have done is they have gathered the Master of Science program in like computer science to make games together with Master of Arts making games. These are actually two different majors. They're sibling programs, and basically like this is the students are very much encouraged to go outside their comfort zones and really like learn the skills you need, like interdisciplinary skills you need to make games. They also made a different major for sound in new media. So previously there wouldn't be any really master's degree program for studying games in like audio in games or like any kind of multimedia. You could study classical music all you wanted. But here they've actually taken the initiative and put the same degree program under the same roof. Now the number of credits is indicative of like, hey, you can pick very many courses from other fields basically, while you also work on sounds. So they do a whole lot of cool games. But I think that's a very good place to stop. So yeah, thanks for listening. So that's the short URL for the slides. I put a whole lot of links in there so you can find a whole lot of stuff in there. So any questions? Yes.
What kind of games have you made?
Well, you kind of saw the cat game. So 2D game, mobile game, 3D game, like, yeah, different kinds. More so like on PC platform than mobile, but some mobile games too. Maybe like less diverse than I should have, but yeah. Yes?
What kind of programs do you prefer?
I mean, basically everybody uses Unity, and they use whatever they like to program C#, and people usually use Blender, like majority use Blender. There are other programs, but that gets outside my comfort zones really.
How many months have you used in game development, like for creating your games? How much time have you spent on those?
Well, my projects have a nasty habit of escaping their intended schedule. So the cat game was worked on for like 6 months, and the game after that were like full year. But yeah, I'm trying to learn to prefer the shorter development cycle, if at all possible. Yes.
Did you look at the application requirements for the different game study programs?
Yes, to an extent. So the bachelor's degree programs is very weird because you can get there from anywhere, but if you go through vocational qualification, you only have like 6 experience points worth of math and physics. So it might be very hard if you're trying to go for engineering, which is all about math and physics. For the master's degree program, it just says like any suitable bachelor's degree program. Like some of these that I've listed would be okay, especially if they get good grades and like take some extra math and physics to be on par with university bachelor's degree programs, basically.
So what's your own view about higher level education versus vapaa sivistystyö?
So if we were to take the conclusion that everybody should apply to Aalto University, we'd need like 100 more Aalto universities in Finland. It's not going to work. So I think different solutions work for different levels of education, basically. And like if I had had the time to compare high school and vocational education, I would have said that like, hey, like these are the pros and cons for each, but like you should pick whatever fills you with determination. Yes.
Have you attended any game jams and have you seen any curriculum sort of embrace the idea of attending a game jam, like integrating that into studies?
Good question. I have attended the last Global Game Jam and it was very enjoyable, but also it was the first time that our school organized a local site, and it was more like closely knit, only students kind of game jam when it was in school, like locked school spaces with a whole bunch of expensive equipment all around. I don't. I have. That's an interesting question. I haven't actually asked different schools how they do things. They might like game jams a lot, but I think they could be included in project studies. Almost anything can count as project studies. Yes.
Can the cat play somewhere?
Yes. It was released on PC platform like last year in the summer. It's available on itch.io with the name Dante's Infernia. I hope it's there somewhere. It's actually like it went viral on YouTube. So yeah, you can find videos about it at the very least.